So, Gee, as you know, it is the one-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder by a Minneapolis police officer. We are hearing now that the family of George Floyd will be meeting with President Biden and top lawmakers soon. His death, as you know, sparked ongoing protests and a re-examination of racism and policing in the U.S. And I want to go back to what we dealt with back last summer after his death.
The intersection of 38th and Chicago has been transformed in the last year from bustling neighborhood corner to a solemn square of reflection as people from all over the world pay their respects. This is where George Floyd was killed. His final moments under the knee of a police officer caught on body and cell phone cameras as onlookers pleaded for Derek Chauvin to stop.
Is he breathing right now? Check his pulse.
The murder verdict last month brought relief to some, but Minneapolis resident April Foster says she still worries for her 15-year-old son.
So you saw George Floyd die, and you were thinking about your son.
I was thinking about my son. That could have been my son.
Over time, like right now, has that fear gone away?
To some degree, yes.
And so now, a year later, I want to ask you if you feel, first, that race relations are better in the United States, and then secondly, do you feel better or worse about raising sons, two young black men in America?
Okay, let me answer the second one first about raising two black sons in America. I feel fine. I feel my sons are safe. I've raised them right. I've taught them right. The conversations over the years of right. As best I can. So I'm comfortable with the two of them in society in America. I'm comfortable with that. Now let me answer your first question. Your first question is do I feel that it is better today? Is that your question,
yes,
Ursula? And the answer is no. But it's a no but. The reason why things aren't better is because last year when this all happened and it took place, all the conversations were starting to being had. The uncomfortable conversations were being had during that time, and we were talking about them. And so there was this companies and organizations and communities and neighborhoods were acting and talking about things. But then in 2020, we were also still facing something that was probably the biggest thing we've ever faced in our life, which was COVID, right? We lost jobs, businesses closed down, people couldn't see their families. And so because of that, the real actions weren't able to be made. And what I mean by real actions, I'm not talking about money, because as you know, money does not fix things. Homelessness problem, okay? That's an example. When I mean by actions, I mean community. I mean coming together. I mean going to the workplace. I mean being physically in the presence of others. So all of the thoughts and the talking weren't able to be acted upon because we were quarantined, because we were sitting at home still. We're working from home still.
I hear what you're saying, but I also disagree. I think that there was more of a chance because we had to stop. Because we had to stop and reflect, there was more of a chance. And I think it worked for a couple of months. And then as people started coming out again, and some people feeling like it went overboard, whether it's the efforts in support of Black Lives Matter or some of these other things that happened, protests that in some cases turned to riots and turned destructive. I think too many people started losing interest and lumping it all together and saying, well, I'm done. And I think that we took I think that the idea that it's going to be a linear thing is never going to happen. It's going to be like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
In 2020, we spent the rest of that year going into the elections basically at home. And what I mean by at home is yes, we were at home, and the only place we really could be to really communicate would be social media. And it was a time that it was easier for people to get inside of their comfort bubble, right? Get inside of a place where it made them feel comfortable and secure, whatever that might be. And there are those that listen to the Gee and Ursula Show every single day. Some do, some don't. And in doing so, they, over this last however long, year and a half that we've been on the air, they've been able to be along on this journey with us. Now, do I believe that there are people, because they have listened to this show, that they are probably, whether they agree or disagree, but even if you do disagree, you're still outside of your comfort level, so much to say that you're not just listening to something that you always agree with. And believe it or not, that's more work than you think, than going to read some book on race relations. Sometimes what's better is when you're outside of your comfort, outside of that bubble. That's when true change happens in our country. So even though I say that things aren't necessarily better, an analogy and an example that I would use, it would be like going into getting some skin work done, and you get the microabrasion, that hard little scrub on your face, and when you're done, it looks all red and agitated, and then the doctor says, hey, don't you worry, it'll get better a little later, just hold tight. That's truly how I feel today.
But I want to ask you, so I'm just going to ask you to dig even deeper, though.
Okay.
I want to ask you, what have you seen or experienced in this past year, specifically, not looking at specifically to you, because you are very open about your feelings, about what you have faced. What have you seen in the past year that either gives you hope or makes you discouraged when it comes to what have we learned in this past year?
I've gotten messages of hope from people, letters at KIRO Radio that I've opened, has been like, you've enlightened me, you've taught me so much during this time. And I've gotten the exact opposite of that, where is, the bad things, and I can't, whatever, I see things that are negative. But there was one thing, there was a text today that I sent to both you and Chef. And this one, usually when I get texts, I got to say, most of them don't bother me. This one, for some reason, bothered me, and I told you guys that it bothered me. And it came in, and it says, Gee, I'm glad you spoke on this. I am a lifelong Democrat, very socially aware, and they said that BLM has turned me racist. I hate that, but all I see as a white male is how evil and bad and ashamed I should be. I hate myself for that. And the reason why that text bothered me so much, and I'll explain it why, is because I've told you this before on how my dad used to tell me, hey, champ, when you're talking and you're making your points, just take the anger out of your voice. Mm-hmm. He would always tell me that. And so when I see a text like that, the reason why it's not my responsibility, but I do have a platform, and I do have, if you will, a responsibility to make things better for those that come after me, for the next generation, I hope that I do enough to get into the heart of that person. Even though I don't know that person, I want to get into the heart of that person so that they don't feel that way. And I have to, and I'm pointing to myself now, I have to do a better job with my delivery and how I explain and talk about some of these topics, because if this person at one point was socially aware, and because of the talk and how it's being done has made them admit to now they're racist, I'm not giving them an excuse. I'm not justifying that.
Well, I hear you. And what I read from that text was this constant barrage of negativity that people, white people specifically, white men are led to believe that you are the problem, that you are just inherently racist because of the color of your skin, without explaining. And that's such that's one approach, and that is such an extreme approach. But there are people who use the airwaves to make you believe that that is the only approach and that is the only message that comes for something like Black Lives Matter. And so you're thinking that, well, I have no way of winning. I can't change the color of my skin. So now this is reverse discrimination. I can't change the color of my skin. So now I'm going to be anti what I normally think would I be an ally. I'm going to fight against it because now I'm under attack. And you have to just remember, please keep an open mind. Don't believe just one person who's telling you you have something to fear because you are white. Please, when you hear something and you think, this doesn't sound right, this doesn't sound like the intent of what is being told or what is being shared or what we want to do, because everyone wants a better tomorrow. Everyone wants to learn from the past and do better, but how do you get there?
Good stuff.
We could talk more. I'm sorry.
We haven't really. That's an example of that. We haven't really. My mind hasn't gone that deep on the air, on the radio, for some time, and I wonder what the reason for that has been. I haven't really gone deep into this discussion right here.
Well, I'm going to keep digging because I think you don't want to tell and share your full self because it's a very vulnerable spot to be in.
Yeah, but I think that there's not enough time in a radio show that we have for me to do that. And every time we do a topic, I think I always want the goal of our show to still be hope at the end of that topic, right? I never want to just negative, and then move on to the next topic and be negative. I always believe there should be some form of hope, some form of a solution going forward. Coming up next.